Before synthetic fertilizers filled bags in garden centers, farmers and gardeners relied on simple, locally available resources to keep their soil alive. They didn't have chemical granules or liquid feeds, but they did understand one truth. Fertility comes from recycling what the land and people already produce. Among the oldest and most effective formulas passed down through centuries is a surprising mix: wood ash, human urine, and compost. It may sound crude to modern ears, but this combination is packed with the nutrients crops need, applied in a form that soil life can process and transform into lasting fertility. Today, science has confirmed what ancient growers already knew. When ash, pea, and compost are blended correctly, they become one of the most balanced, sustainable, and fast-acting fertilizers you can make at home. Each ingredient in this trio contributes something unique. Now, wood ash, taken from the remains of burned, untreated wood, is rich in potassium, calcium, and trace minerals. These are the elements, you see, that strengthen plant cell walls, improve disease resistance, and regulate water use. Urine, on the other hand, is loaded with nitrogen in the form of urea, alongside phosphorus and small amounts of potassium. Fresh diluted urine is actually one of the fastest-acting nitrogen sources available, capable of jump-starting microbial activity and leaf growth. Compost is the stabilizer. It supplies humus, buffers pH, and provides the microbial workforce that converts raw nutrients into plant-available forms. It slows down the release of nitrogen from urine and tempers the alkalinity of ash, turning the mixture into a steady, balanced feed rather than a sudden jolt. So, together, these three ingredients actually form a natural version of what modern gardeners would call an NPK fertilizer. Nitrogen comes from urine, phosphorus and potassium from both urine and ash. And then you've got the organic matter from compost. Historical records, show that cultures from Scandinavia all the way to Asia understood the value of recycling waste into their fields. Historical records show, once again, that cultures from Scandinavia to Asia understood the value of recycling waste into fields. Scandinavian farmers, for example, would mix urine with composted bedding and ashes from the hearth, making heaps that were spread out before planting. And in China, human urine and ash were routinely added to compost pits, so they could recycle nutrients right back into the rice fields. Even in medieval Europe, folks would often mix ash from the hearth and, chamber pot contents with garden refuse to enrich their kitchen gardens. These growers didn't have any synthetic inputs, yet their soils stayed fertile for centuries. That really does speak to the power of this method, doesn't it? To replicate this ancient recipe today, you'll want to start with untreated wood ash. Just make sure you avoid ash from coal, painted wood, or chemically treated lumber. Sift out any nails or charcoal chunks and then store it dry in a sealed bucket until you're ready to use it. When it comes to urine, fresh is indeed best. It should be collected and diluted quickly, you see, because stored urine converts urea into ammonia, which can be lost as gas. A safe ratio is 1 part urine to 10 parts water for direct application. However, when you combine it with compost, the dilution becomes a bit less critical since the compost absorbs and processes the nitrogen quite nicely. Now, compost should be at least half finished. That means it has heated and broken down, but still contains some organic matter for those microbes to chew on, keeping them busy, If only fresh plant waste is available, the urine and ash can lend a hand in accelerating decomposition. But do keep in mind the finished mix will take a bit longer to stabilize. Patience is key, my friends. One practical method is to layer them directly in a compost pile. For every wheelbarrow of half-finished compost, sprinkle in about 2 shovelfuls of wood ash. Then water the layer with half a gallon of fresh urine diluted in a gallon of water. Repeat this process as you build the pile. Over time, the compost absorbs the soluble nutrients from the urine and the minerals from the ash, locking them into humus. After, 2 to 3 months of curing, the finished material is dark, crumbly, and rich in a balanced nutrient profile. Another approach is to brew a liquid fertilizer. In a 20-litre bucket, mix 1 quart of sifted wood ash with 1 quart of urine, then fill the rest with water and stir in 2 shovelfuls of compost. Let the mixture sit loosely covered for a week, stirring occasionally. The compost inoculates the liquid with microbes, the urine provides nitrogen, and the ash supplies potassium. So, after about a week, the brew can be strained and then applied as a root drench right at the base of your plants. For garden beds, you want to apply no more than 5 gallons of the ash urine compost liquid per 100 square feet at a time, and then, repeat this every 3 to 4 weeks during the growing season. For garden beds, again, it's best not to use more than 5 gallons of the ash urine compost liquid per 100 square feet at a time, and repeat every 3 to 4 weeks while things are growing. For fruit trees, pour about 1 to 2 gallons around the drip line in spring, and give them another dose in midsummer. And for compost piles, try to keep a balance where ash makes up no more than 10% of the total volume, as adding too much will make your pile alkaline and really slow down decomposition. Right, so urine can be added more liberally, up to about 1 quart per cubic foot of material per week, just as long as you've got enough carbon-rich stuff like straw or leaves in there to soak it all up. Compost on its own can take months to mature, especially if it's missing a good balance of nitrogen and minerals. Adding urine, well, that supplies the missing nitrogen to really heat the pile and get those microbes working, while ash brings in potassium and calcium to help stabilize the final humus. Plants, they respond pretty quickly to this old-school fertilizer. Nitrogen gives a real boost to leafy growth in vegetables like lettuce, spinach and cabbage, while the potassium from ash helps promote flowering and fruiting in things like tomatoes and peppers. And don't forget, calcium from ash helps prevent blossom end rot, which is a common headache in tomatoes and squash. Meanwhile, the compost base improves soil structure, moisture retention and microbial diversity, making sure that, nutrients aren't just dumped into the soil but actually cycled in ways that plants can continually access. Over time, beds treated with this blend develop richer topsoil, greater worm activity and, honestly, resilience against drought and disease. One mistake is applying too much ash directly to soil, which, can spike the pH and lock up nutrients. Always blend it into compost or dilute it in liquid form. Another mistake is overusing urine without balancing it with carbon material, and that can lead to salt buildup. Dilution and composting prevent this. Now then, just remember, it's really important not to mix ash and urine together unless you're adding them to compost. See, the high alkalinity of ash can actually cause the nitrogen in urine to escape into the air, rather than keeping it locked in the soil where your plants need it. So always use compost to get the best results. What might seem crude or even unappealing at first glance is, in fact, one of the most elegant solutions to soil fertility. By recycling wood ash, human urine and compost, gardeners close the nutrient loop in a way that requires no outside inputs, no chemicals and no waste. Ancient farmers understood that nothing should be thrown away, and their soils thrived for centuries as a result. With modern science validating their practices, it is time to bring this forgotten recipe back into daily gardening. If you want to cut fertilizer costs, recycle resources and build living soil faster, try combining ash, pea and compost the way growers did for generations before us. This ancient recipe is not just sustainable, it is powerful, effective and simple to apply. For more proven soil-building guides and forgotten gardening wisdom that still works today, subscribe to Soil and Plant Doctor and share this video with others who are ready to return to the oldest, most natural ways of feeding their soil.